Right. Historical Western martial arts. Word invention. If people don't like me calling what I do HEMA, then other word inventions, semi-modern, over there. Is the Falklands modern HEMA? Whatever modern HEMA. Well, it's historical. It's Western. It's martial arts. So in my opinion, yes, it's got bayonet. So things. Let's just call this vlog stuff that no one does. I'm noticing gaps in the market. French, not only French cutlass, but cutlass manuals in general don't seem to be. They are there, and people do spar with them, like the AHF, but they're not huge. And like the French, like a sort of thrusting system, like say French. The French system, with the stabbing system of cutlass, especially straight stabs, like very Western style, like Franco-Italian style. I don't see that at all, but just in general, cutlass treatises and manuals not hugely represented in the same way as the World Wars, martial arts clubs and daggers and that. Again, it exists, but it's an extremely tiny percentage. All this stuff I'm noticing revolves around it revolves around generally the sort of late mid to late, because someone say like 1300 with the I-33, so say mid to late Middle Ages, and then up until the 1900s generally at a stretch, because you can include sort of late saber in the 1900s. So yeah, sort of 1300 till about 1900s, roughly, if we say late Victorian or something, right? 1900 and 0 would be late Victorian, but so is it to do with time frame? I don't know, because even within the time frames, people are not doing. Scholar said there's like more surviving manuals or known manuals of saber than almost any other system. Okay, yeah, granted, probably. I wouldn't know, because I don't think any human in their lifetime has enough to study all those manuals. It'd just be physically impossible. But let's just say, for argument's sake, yeah, which is fine. But I don't think that explains why people are doing specific weapons that are extremely popular, like saber, longsword, and things, because maybe not as many, but there definitely are quite a couple of bayonet manuals and instructionals from 1700s and onwards, right? Quite a few, if you look. They might not be, again, as numerous, probably not, but there's definitely findable. They're definitely sort of common or semi-common. They're certainly not. They're certainly not rare by any means, and yet don't see a huge popularity of bayonet HEMA, and you certainly don't see modern or semi-modern bayonets, which is to say, if they're from like 80s, 90s, technically that's historical, and technically it's Western martial arts, so it's HEMA or HWMA, as far as I'm concerned, right? Because it's history and it's Western martial arts, so it's HEMA. It might be modern HEMA, but as far as I can get it, it is HEMA. People probably don't like that, but again, which is why I came up with the word HWMA. But even disregarding that, even if we say no, that's not modern HEMA, doesn't exist, even if you go back to the 1900s, 18 and 17, the bayonet manuals from those periods, even, as I say, if we keep it more history based, they're still not as popular as HEMA saber or two-handed sword, which covers quite a couple of swords: two-handed backsword, Swiss saber, gross messer, and then like hand and a half messer, Langes messer, which some are hand and a half. So it covers quite a lot, but there's just gaps now. Whether these gaps are just accidental, I don't know, but I noticed that there's just gaps. Switching hands, very suddenly, and unarmed striking and collar tie and things. These are all missing in punches, but also throwing shoes, throwing the pommel, stuff like that, in sparring. Just anything really. But yeah, these are just gaps. So as I say, these are like you can do like a little stomp or a kick and then a sword attack, like almost like a split second after to kind of confuse the person. Because I do notice a lot when I watch the WMA sparring online that people generally are, even high level people, in my opinion, are sticking to just the weapon hand. They're just doing weapon work, and they're not, as I say, doing, with some limited exceptions, but 80 to 90% of it is, again, in my opinion, 80 to 90% is weapon work and the weapon hand. You know, the dominant hand, and so it's cut work or a bit of stab work, but it's, you know, with the synthetic blades, but it's all um, very 80 to 90%, in my opinion, very extremely heavily focused on the weapon blade, with forgetting the offhand, not only for grabbing the opponent blade, but also for collar tie, for wrist control, for punching or palm strikes or forearm strike, or, you know, any of this, or joint lock, or etc etc. The offhand is forgot to its detriment, and these unmainstream, these uh, mm, esoteric or unorthodox moves are totally forgot, again, to a big detriment. Unless if people are very heavily on a mainstream stylist with mainstream techniques, then that works great. But people of my brain, of the right-brained variety, it's not going to work so good to do mainstream techniques. So yeah, this is just, again, stuff that no one does, and synthetic, cold steel, polypropylene, machete, and sword machete hybrid, and then like machete, you know, by itself, regular machete, and sword machete. Again, polypropylene sparring, or whatever the nylon sparring models are of them. So 3 types, a bit like hand and a half, one handed and two handed. You've got single edge, double edge, and then like 1.5 edges, or one and a third edges, you know, because a false edge on the back. So these are things no one's doing. Is yeah, throwing shoes, using the offhand for very unorthodox, non-mainstream techniques. Machete, like single machete, solo machete, regular machete, normal style machete, sword machete, hybrid machete. The World Wars, WMA, HEMA, offhand, bayonet. Even if you go to what I call modern HEMA, even if you go to like the 1900s or before, still don't see this kind of popularity in present day HEMA with bayonets, even though there's lots of manuals and instructionals. So I don't think the presence of a lot of instructionals explains the popularity. That reason by itself does not explain the popularity, in my opinion. Again, this quite rare. Also, now there's also a Portuguese style of lacan, which I can't remember the name of, but you just call it a walking stick. You know, fighting or sparring, right? And I call it straight stick, right? Another word invention. So it means there's no side handles hanging off like a so-called single stick. It's just an unguarded straight stick of about maybe 3 foot or 2.9 foot, something like that. Yeah, 2.5 foot to 3 foot, something like that. Just like a cutlass or a saber kind of length, but I call it straight because it's just a straight, like a walking cane or a walking stick. So again, And there are other countries, probably Italian, Spanish, etc., etc., English, American. So it isn't just Lacan, but walking cane styles, but with straight sticks, as in non-hand guarded ones. People aren't doing that very much. The stab, point, the thrust, riposte, parry, all that Western style, that French style cutlass. Again, I don't really see it at all ever. These again, even if you go historical kind of HEMA, yeah. You could say modern bayonets like synthetic sparring. That's not HEMA. I'd say again WMA then, but you don't see any of that. Flag spears, you don't see any of that. Someone would say they're not Western. Yes and no, because again in the World Wars there is, and possibly the 1900s. If you go back to like the turn of the century, there probably is. Definitely the American with the Spanish-U.S. conflict. There was Westerners had like sword machete things, like bayonet swords that had a machete style shape. So definitely machetes and sword machetes were in WMA, definitely. And as I say, I think 1900s or before, if you can look at Spanish artillery short swords and they're kind of machete-like, and Bowie swords from the US Civil War, so-called. Again, kind of a pseudo machete or whatever you call. But as I say, definitely by the 1900s and turn of the century, you've got in WMA, you've got sword machetes and machete kind of bayonet swords and things like that. And that's another one, sword bayonet, that no one does. Another one no one does. They don't do like the SMLE smiley. I call it smiley. Does that say like the samurai British, whatever you call British or English? Sword bayonet, right? So that one, the length is like 17 to 19 inches or something, right? But it depending on, it can, in some classification systems, it can class as a short sword. So you can actually apply the Talhofer Messer techniques from the 1400s into this World War One. The long bladed sword bayonet, you can actually apply that to that stuff, as well as sword bayonets from the 1800s and Napoleonic time and etc. Right, so you can apply those Messer techniques for that World War One style of bayonet, which again is I never see. So there's just loads of stuff. I just notice gaps in things. What else? Yeah, Where mentions historical Western martial arts with the dash. It's just my own personal sort of OCD or whatever, or personal notation. I just invent words, so that's one of my word dimensions. So that the ultra puritanical HEMA's crew don't say I'm, destroying HEMA or misrepresenting. It's like, okay, fine, this is what I'm doing then, HEMA investigator from the outside looking in or something like that. Whatever you call. But there's my word that I'm doing. So another thing people aren't doing on a kind of large scale in the HEMA or WMA community is old school. So like what we call sport fencing or Western fencing with the foil épée saber is like, and again I'm sure there's some people doing it, but going back to like the very start, like 1900 or whenever, and doing like the original type of, and again I'm sure there's a couple of people, but there's no like, it's an extreme sort of outlier in my opinion. There's no sort of general culture or even a semi-general culture of it. So you can go back to the original. What did the original like epee foil saber? The original, like when it very first started, really old school sport fencing or Western fencing. You can investigate that and have a go at those kind of old style introductory blades, as well as the Queensberry and went the glove boxing, the old leather gloves, and combine that with this one, the Sherlock Holmes martial art. You can combine that with that, and then Irish bare knuckle and English bare knuckle. Pugilism and things, which again seems to be rare, as well as unarmed HEMA in general. Yes, the exception being Ringen, which is some small scale popularity. Definitely, that's true, but in general, unarmed HEMA, especially the pugilism, as I say, in English bare knuckle, Irish bare knuckle, things like that, really no sort of. It seems there's no kind of sparring culture around that, in my opinion, in the historical Western martial arts community. Anything else? The Siaks. You've got this short sword here. This type of short sword again. Never really see it. Do any martial replicas with it in the HWMA community, in my opinion. What else gaps are there? I don't know. Yeah, it's just about gaps. I'm just giving flag spears. Never ever seen anyone talk about it. It's hidden in plain sight, a bit like tactical gear. So we'll talk about that in 2 seconds. So flag spears is the spear with the, modern sort of nation flag with a sort of spear topper on. If it breaks in half, it can be used as like a Kali stick. If it stays its length and maybe loses the spear blade, it's a quarter staff, or a bow staff, or a joe staff, a Western style bow or joe staff, so called. So there's loads of things, loads of ideas there. So no one's ever talking about this. And again, it's HIPS, HIPS. It's hidden in plain sight, a bit like the tactical gear from antiquity to modern period, where you've got the sleeveless cuirass, which has lasted for, again, old and modern, lasted full circle, as well as the tactical short sword. You've got tactical gladius, single edged, double edged, and false edge, like 1.5 edges. And again, full circle, probably because of its practicality and use in. You can use it in like an open space and a small space, whereas with a long blade, you couldn't maybe do that as easily. In my opinion. So yeah, just stuff that no one's doing. Other stuff is you could say cross training, like HEMA and Kali, Filipino, stuff like that, and yeah, and then just really quickly on this, just as after I've talked about the tactical full circle, is no one does like Gladius and Coppice and all them and Falcata. I know people say lack of manuals or whatever. Yeah, I mean, again, I don't necessarily wholeheartedly buy that argument, because, as I say, there were quite a lot of bayonet manuals from the 17 to the 1900s and beyond, that are semi-abundantly available, and again, you don't see the popularity you do with other swords like saber and long sword and other sword. You don't see the popularity, so I don't think it can be explained by that alone. So again, Gladius, Parazonium, Coppice, Falcata, Seeker, things like that. No one's doing it, in my opinion. In the HEMA sort of scene, in my opinion. What else? Yeah, this one, massive one. I'm I'm not going to say invented, but semi-invented, if you like. Question mark, semi-invented. This investigation. I'm inventing this investigation. I don't think anyone else has invented it. Flag spears. Let's say modern bayonets like the SA80 and QBZ95 Asian bayonet and modern bayonets and sparring and the WMA. If you take the British and the American one, obviously not the Asian one. Although some people might argue it's an offshoot of a Western bayonet, but regardless, again, this investigation, kind of one of the first ever people, I think, with the HEMA, the Neo HEMA sort of thing, or WMA, investigation. No one really ever talks about it. Yeah, and then I'm just going to finish off briefly for a couple of minutes on system links and how all these swords, sort of cousins, so the rapier, saber, back sword, broadsword, all that stuff, right, is the sort of cut and thrust thing. So I know that one's stab only, there's no edge on it to cut, but the majority of them are. And system links, what cross-training and common elements between the systems are that you can do a straight thrust or a round stab, a round thrust, like again, Kali within the Filipino art, and also with cutlass. So you can do like a round stab or a straight one. But you can also do, in WMA sparring and things, you can also do where this a curved kind of attack to gain points or to win the tournament, whatever you call, or the sparring match, where you a circular or semicircle kind of action. So instead of a straight thrust, which has its problems because it's very telegraphed and things, and probably it's just not my style of doing it. So yes, fine, I have a bias and probably not a talent for that particular movement, but you can raise them up to meet, a bit like Wu Sao and Wing Chun. You raise up whether it's a rapier or a saber, right, or a foil or a small sword. You can sort of meet. Well, again, with the ones that are cut out, stab only or point only, thrust work only, I don't know, but with the definitely rapier one, because it's slightly cut and thrust, and saber and backsword and Scottish broadsword and things, you can meet. I'd have to add in the video that got 13 views with the outdoor HEMA sword. I kind of tried to show this on the PEL that you can meet it. So you raise your hand, but it's sort of at the last minute, there's a slight forward action, just like in very similar to Wing Chun. Even with the Wing Chun sword, possibly this is done within the Chinese martial arts. Wing Chun Kuen might do this again with the Wing Chun swords, but you sort of raise it, but instead of doing like a false edge cut where it's circular, you sort of come forward. So it's disguised as like a false edge cut, but it actually ends up being a round stab. Yeah, a circular thrust to gain, again, to win the match or whatever. So it's kind of up, but then it's hard to explain. You'd have to see. It's something you feel. It's not something you really talk or write about. It's you have to get the particular feel for the thing, like direct experience in Eastern philosophy. So there's those things that are common to like rapier, saber, and that kind of cut and thrust kind of stuff, one-handed stuff, and backsword and Scottish broadsword and things is you sort of lift and go forward, and you can do it inside and outside, just like the Wu Saos and things. And you can do it rising up or sinking down from a high position, and sideways out to in or in to out, and then you can do the corners as well, like a compass direction. So the common elements here with these cut thrusts, rapier, sabre, backsword, Scottish broadsword. The common sort of, and to a degree mesa, is the one-handed versions are that you can what's the word, displace, that's the word I'm looking for. You can displace with thrust movements and what do you call it, stab work and point work, whatever they call it in other schools of WMA, yeah, whatever the nomenclature is. But you can, in the sparring with the synthetic stuff, you can displace, Rapier's very good at this, but also like French cutlass and anything on the point work, and French sabre and things, and Italian, that very famous Western style sort of stab and riposte kind of system, which again I have problems with, but within that system, within that mindset, you can do not only straight thrust or lunge, but also a curved thrust, which people forget about, and not only a curved thrust, but a sort of a feint, so a conversion or transformation from a cut into a round thrust. Yeah, so it might look like a cut number one, and then it comes to it cut number one, and then it looks like a backhand angle 2 cut, but it's a false edge stab. I mean, not a false edge stab, sorry, like with the Kali stick. It's a curved stab, a round stab, or a curved thrust. So it's angle number one, feint the backhand cut, but then you do this round stab, curved stabs, which are really good for sort of single edge blades and slightly curved, like cutlass, saber, mesa, etc. One-handed. Really can't describe it, but basically what links them, as I say, is these sort of displacements where you can kind of, and arming sword also to a degree can do this. Cat swords, cut and thrust, one-handed cat swords, CAT, right, is so one-handed cat sword. Anyway, is this displacements and curved thrust and point work. Again, I'd have to show it, and you'd have to get the feel of it, because it doesn't really make sense without the feel. But it's a kind of a bit like Tai Chi Chuan. It's a sort of non-linear, circular kind of indirect approach where it can confuse. Now, yes, those things take longer than a straight line, straight lunge or straight thrust, whatever you call, but it can sort of off-put the opponent, because it can disguise things as different things. So it's a much more indirect, non-linear sort of psychological approach, if you like. But the things that link those, as I say, is the sort of like second in, I think it's called second in revers or revers, like the first, second, third, fourth displacements, from what I gather from the Koblenz book, the Green Book of Amazon, as you do those kind of displacements. But as I say, you can do a straight thrust or a sort of curved one disguised as things. But again, you'd have to get the feel of it, and I would have to show on a different video how you can displace things. It's a sort of Easterny idea, but has Western applications anyway.